Hey everyone, this is Steve, and today I'm going to show you how to memorize a Rubik's Cube for blind solving. Now, I recently had a request to make this video. Keep in mind that this is not a video about solving the cube blindfolded. I will just be talking about how I memorize the cube. Alright, the method that I use to blind solve is called Old Pochmann. If you want to learn this method, then I suggest watching the tutorial made by Badmephisto. He does an excellent job explaining the method, and that is also the video that I watched when I first learned. I'll put a link to his video in the description down below. Now, in his tutorial, he talks about the story method for memorizing. I personally feel that it takes way too long to memorize the cube that way. The method I'm using now is kind of like a short version of the story method. Here's how it goes. Now, when using Old Pochmann, you solve edges and corners separately. First, I'll go over how I solve my edge pieces. But keep in mind, when you're blind solving, you always hold the cube the same way all the time. When I solve mine, I always have yellow on top, blue in the front, and red on the right. Alright, now for my edges. As you can see, I assigned a letter to every sticker on every edge piece around the cube. Okay? Starting on the top, this is the top for me, yellow, I went in a counterclockwise fashion, and when you're doing this, if you choose to do it this way, you can assign any letter in any sequence you want, any way that helps you memorize it better. But this is the way I did it. I went A, B, C, D, and then in the front I went E, F, G, H, and then you turn it, I, J, K, L, turn, M, N, O, P, turn, Q, R, S, T, and then on the bottom I went U, V, W, Y. I skipped X and I put Y in there instead because while doing the memorization on this, it's a lot easier to make words or phrases with the letter Y than it is with the letter X. At first I had the letter X in there and I kept getting stuck on it and having trouble coming up with creative things to use it with, so I changed it to Y. So the only two letters in the alphabet I don't use are X and Z. And I suggest you do the same because it will make it easier. Now, the reason I wrote on my cube and did this was to illustrate that when you're doing the memorization and you're following pieces around the cube, it's much easier to memorize just one letter instead of two letters. In the regular story method, this piece here, if blue was on top, you'd be thinking blue, red, blue, red. So if this piece is on top, all you have to remember is H. And we'll get more into that here in just a few minutes. Now, you write on your cube like this and you try to memorize how all of the letters are and where they are. That way, when your eyes are closed and you're trying to solve and you go to solve a piece, you know exactly where it goes. And you know which piece needs to be on top that you need to switch with. If you've learned the method, then you understand what I'm talking about. You can do lots of tricks to try to help you. Like for instance, this piece here. There's a B and there's a Q. Well, to me, it helped me to remember QB, like quarterback. You know, and I always remembered quarterback was my orange and yellow piece, and B was on top and Q was on the side. It helps if you try to do things like an association with them. Like SV, for instance, I have a friend whose initials are SV. So I always remember that the orange-white piece stands for my friend. Keep in mind your buffer piece, which in my case is D and I. You never end up using that when you're doing a solve. You never end up using the letter D or the letter I. At least I don't. Alright, now let's take a look. I've set up a couple cases here of edge pieces that need to be solved. Okay. Now, when you're doing your memorization, you're going to look at your first piece, your buffer piece. This is the piece you're going to be solving every time, in between these two corners. So you look at the sticker that's on top and you ask, what letter is it? This one's F. Okay. Now the F spot goes right here in the front, right here. I know that because I've memorized how they go. So it goes F, then you look at the next piece that it's going to replace, that it's L. This L will end up here after I solve this piece. So it goes F, L. Now where does L go? It goes over here, right here. And then P. So it'll go F, L, P, and then P goes back here. J, F, L, P, J, and J goes here, which is my last piece, which it should be solved. I know that red, yellow is my end piece. It's the last one that I will solve. So I don't even need to memorize either of these letters. I just know that after that J, I'll be done. So we'll go F, L, P, J, and that's it. So if you have a really good memory, you can just remember F, L, P, J. But the problem is, when you are trying to memorize all of the edges, you could end up with a lot of letters to memorize. So it makes it kind of difficult. So I do increments of 4 letters, and I'll make up a phrase. So if I go through all the edges straight, then it'll be like 4 words, and then 4 words or 3 words. So F, L, P, J. That could be Frank lets people jump. Okay? Or anything like that. Frank lets people jump. So I just remember that. And then I go on, and then if this wasn't my last piece, if this was another unsolved piece, I would just continue on after that. I would remember Frank lets people jump. Then I'd go on to the next set of things I need to memorize. So now let's pretend that our eyes are closed and you're remembering Frank lets people jump. So we'll do our setup move. The first move was F, so it's right here. It goes here. Frank. Set it up. Switch it using a T-perm. That piece is solved. Now L is next. Frank lets. L is right here. So I do my setup move. Switch it. Undo my setup move. Now that's solved. Frank lets people. P is back here. Switch it. Jump. J is right here. So I do my setup move. Undo my setup move. And there, see? Now every piece is solved again. Now I hope you understand the basic concept behind this. You just follow the pieces all around the cube and make up phrases as you go to help you remember what order you need to go in to solve them. Now again, if you've already watched Badmephisto's video on the old Pochmann method, then you'll understand everything that I'm talking about. For those of you that don't, you're not going to have a clue. Alright, well that's how I do my edges, and I hope it's helpful and I hope you understand. Alright, let's move on to corners.